The National Center Russia is a public space dedicated to strengthening national identity, instilling pride in the country and developing professional skills in children and young people. The center was established by order of Russian President Vladimir Putin. Here, in just one day, future. It's a center of national pride, where dreams are born and love for the motherland awakens. It hosts international forums, business meetings, as well as cultural and educational events that have global significance. The National Center Russia is a place of strength, purpose, and national pride for all citizens of our country.
Good morning, dear friends. I'm glad to welcome you this morning with us in this beautiful National Center of Russia, in this beautiful symposium Inventing the Future. Unfortunately, the lights do not allow me to see your faces and smiles, but I hope that you will get involved more and more and get deeper into our discussion, because the discussion is going to be quite interesting. We'll speak about what content we will face soon in 10, 20, 30, and 50 years, how platforms will develop, what characters will communicate to us, and how we will be creating and consuming this beautiful content. We have, I'm sure, creators and viewers here in the audience, and even both. So the key point in this discussion is going to the characters that will help us to peek into the future, the characters that will lead us to the future. And interesting thing is that Laurent Edwidge University scientists say that the characters we see every day in short videos or in newspapers articulate and shape our values more than anything else, and they help us to make everyday choices, and they help us to make decisions in complicated situations. They define our role models. But some of the characters we are following might get us stressed. When we look at superheroes, we think that we will never be like them. This is something unachievable, something too far away from us. And so let them define the future, not us. But at the same time, there is an interesting research. I would like to share the figures from this research. Holding of Digital TV and Institute of Modern Media their research shows that 67%, more than half of the respondents, want to see as characters simple people, the next door guy, but not those who are invented or created, or those whom we do not meet every day. Not created characters, but ordinary people. And from their perspective, this should be a positive, socially approved, kind character, every day making good deeds and helping others around him, and is developing himself. So that's the request from the audience today. But what will we see tomorrow? What characters and images we will see on our screens in 20 or 30 years to come? So that's the key point of our today's discussion. And moving ahead, I would like to say that our discussion will not just stay as a record or a broadcast and hi to those who are with us online now. We plan, as a result of this discussion, we plan to publish the recommendations to work with characters, how to create characters and how to promote them, what content is necessary to to actually pack the character, the hero, sorry for speaking in such practical terms. And these methodological recommendations will be available for everyone. They will be published and they will be available online. You will be able to share them and use them in your work. I'm sure it will be useful. And who are our speakers, panelists today? I'm sure you are aware who they are, but let me introduce them. Alexei Gorislavsky, CEO, Institute for Internet Development. Through this institute, thousands of units of content go through, thousands of characters, and the experience you've accumulated allows you to speak about what will be in demand. And Mariana Maximovskaya, CEO of VK Video. On the VK platform, every day a huge amount of content is uploaded with various characters, and the platform is developing very rapidly. And I'm sure we have much to discuss about how this platform will develop in the future, what content, what heroes we will see in VK Video. Vladimir Tabak, the dialogue regions. And Vladimir is aware how to promote characters and create powerful, strong images. The others will follow. Roberto Quali, our guest from Italy, sci-fi writer, and he created tens of very interesting stories and heroes and characters. So I'm sure he has something to share with us today. Van Chao, co-founder, Sun 5 Space, Qingdao Future Light Culture, creative director. These are the organizations to promote Chinese sci-fi, and we are all monitoring it very attentively. We know about very strong projects to develop sci-fi in China, and this experience is very interesting for us today. And finally, our last but not least speaker, Vladimir Todorov, producer for documentary content in OKO, the person who is now creating fantastic content project related to fantasy. We'll speak about the project, we will hear insights from him, and we will find out what expects us. I am moderator Yulia Ablets, Deputy Director ANO Regions, Dialogue Regions, and this discussion is very interesting for us today because our graduate experts always ask us to peek into the future. What should we do to be in demand tomorrow? So let's start. And my first question will go to Roberto. Roberto, you wrote a lot of stories, and probably you know the formula of a successful character. Could you please share it with us? Who is he, the successful hero character of the future? What qualities he should possess? And can we create a character who is interesting for East and West and South and North, a multicultural personage character? Is it possible? Please use microphone. Thank you.
Does it work? Yes. It's a very complex and interesting question. It will be difficult to answer it all. First of all, yes, I may have created a lot of characters, but my characters are not very mentally healthy, so I'm not a good example, for that. However, I've studied very much, archetypes that are connected with heroes in different parts of the world. And the second part of the question, the one about how to create characters which are interesting on a multilateral audience, so in a multipolar world, actually. Well, this is actually the real challenge, because we are coming from decades and decades and decades of some stereotypes which has been developed in the West and especially in Hollywood, which actually have defined a way to depict heroes, which is a reflection of the Anglo-Saxon, very individualistic type of society. And heroes are always an emanation, actually, of the archetype of a society. So now that the world is turning multipolar and at an increasing speed, we can foresee that the future will need characters and heroes completely different because they will have to reflect a completely different way of seeing the world, which will be a multilateral way, because in different parts of the world there are different concepts. For example, I will make an example which was very important for me. I wrote a book about Hollywoodism, so the way in which the films can shape even an ideology. I was very interested in the Chinese film The Wandering Earth, because this was one of the very first examples, in my view, of science fiction in the multipolar world, which defines heroes in a different way from the stereotypes that we have been used to. Because you don't have anymore the individual heroes who save the day, but we have a collective approach to the problem and a collective solution. So you see, now we see heroes which actually act socially, not individualistically. This is a little example, but a very important example, in my view, to describe how the future could be. So heroes that are really different from the ones that we had been used to follow in the past. So, of course, Russia will have to find its own way, and it's a work in progress for every country, to create heroes which actually are the reflection of the true Russian spirit. And this will be the task, basically, of every new pole of culture which projects itself outside of its own borders, because we have so many cultures, but not all project images through films, through heroes in the world today or until today. In the future, this will be a requirement for the multipolar world in order to be really multipolar. You really have a real multipolarity in the variety of the spirit of the heroes that will be created, in order to the world to be really multipolar, because multipolarity is not only a geopolitical, economical, military issue, but in the end it's especially a cultural and spiritual one. You know? So these are the levels at which heroes have their importance.
Roberto, am I right saying that when we're speaking about characters of new multipolar world, we're speaking about various heroes representing various cultures? And is it possible to have a universal hero who is simultaneously representing various cultures, acting as a synergy character that brings together different things?
That will be the challenge of the creators of the future, to create it, because everything is possible in my view. Of course, I don't have the skills to create one, but I'm sure that somebody will be, and maybe someone should create an award for the best universal hero that will be created. That would be a very nice challenge, because you don't need anymore a skill. For example, I'm a science fiction writer, so you need in science fiction skills in technology, in hard science, but this will be not sufficient anymore. You will need skills in psychology, in cultures, in anthropology. So only an interdisciplinary talent will be able in the future, I think, to create such a new universal hero. Of course, you don't need only the knowledge, you need also the talent. So it will be a very, very fascinating challenge, and I hope somebody will soon succeed. I will be the first to applaud.
Thank you very much, Roberto. Yes, I think there is something to applaud too, indeed. And for those future creators, I hope this is some of you here today in the room, someone who will be able to create that universal multipolar character. So it's not enough to create a character, it is important that his image is complicated and interesting, and we should know how to promote him. So, Vladimir Tabak, when we speak about achievements of a country, it is important to create a story where everyone can find himself and something interesting for him or her, and this story will embody these large achievements. How can we promote the character, Vladimir? If we get back to the beginning of our discussion of an ordinary person, how can we make it interesting for many people? How to reach everyone in our target audience? In the future, you mean? In the future? In the future, I do not know. Okay, let's start from today, and then probably we'll find answers to questions. You can give the floor to the next speaker. But, you know, what I'm interested in,
Я сейчас посмотрел,
I just looked
какой год
at
подразумевался в
what
нескольких фильмах.
year is meant
Я посмотрел «Терминатор»
in some
и
of the
посмотрел
movies.
«Фильм назад
I
в
watched
будущее».
Terminator
И
and Back to the
в
Future. In
То
Terminator,
есть они себе
I mean,
представляли
they
от
imagined
начала этой
the
войны с
beginning
искусственным
of this
интеллектом
war against AI in
1997 год.
1997.
А
Well,
сам
we went
герой
through it,
основной,
but the
он
character, the
как
main
бы
character,
оказался там с
actually
2029.
got there from
Ну, то есть это
2029.
очень смешно,
Well, it looks
как
funny
даже
how
очень талантливые,
very talented,
причем они же, ну,
but
все равно пытаются
anyway,
себе
they
представить,
try
несмотря на то,
to
что фильм
imagine,
фантастический,
despite the fact
как
that
будет
this is
выглядеть
a
реальность в
sci-fi
эти годы.
movie, they try
И
to
очень смешно,
see how reality
насколько
might look like in this period of time.
не
And
совпадает
it is fun to
даже
see
в таких, ну,
how
масштабных проектах потом,
fun to see
насколько
these
нереалистично оказывается
discrepancies
эта
and how
картинка. С другой
unrealistic
стороны, я
this movie
посмотрел
is from today. But I looked
назад в будущее.
also, I
И там речь
watched
идет про
Back to the
2015
Future,
год.
and
И
they're
если
speaking about
убрать оттуда вот эту
2015.
историю
And
с
if
летающей
we cross
машиной,
out the story
они
with
показывают
flying
там
machine,
плоские
they are
телевизоры,
showing
они
flat
показывают там
screen
ряд, на самом деле,
TVs and a
технических
number of
изобретений,
technical
о которых они не могли
inventions
догадываться,
they
но
could
которые
not
они
imagine, but
спрогнозировали.
they forecasted.
Поэтому это о чем говорит?
Forecasted the appliances.
знаю, о
What
чем
does
это
it mean?
говорит.
I do not know what it
Но
means.
это говорит
But
о том,
it
что
means
ну, мы никогда
it means
не
that
можем себе
we
предположить,
cannot
что будет
predict
дальше
what
с,
comes
ну, на
next,
самом деле, даже какой-то высокой точностью.
even with
И,
high precision. No.
Мы же все любим
We
прогнозы.
all like
Для меня,
forecasting.
знаешь,
For
история
me,
с будущим,
the story with
она
the future
всегда укладывалась в
is always
прогнозы,
within the
связанные с
framework of
распространением
forecasts
коронавируса.
related to the
Поскольку
the spread of
мы были
coronavirus.
информационным
You know,
центром, вот
we
Алексей
were the
Сергеевич помнит,
information center. Alexei Sergeyevich
всегда
might
читать
remember
просто
that.
то, что не заболеет
Reading
европейская часть населения.
about reading the pieces of news saying that the European part of the population will not get sick. This is the last stamp. And where it mutates, no forecasts came true. Over the recent years, no forecast came true. The world has become very unpredictable. I think forecasting, we needed not to be afraid of the future. It seems like getting a bit more outlined, clearer, and you feel a bit more confident moving forward. People are afraid of the future. I think that's one of the reasons all Telegram channels are popular who are working in conspirology, and the peak of popularity now is among the extrasensoric people, those who use the tarot cards. People are afraid of unexpected things, and they want to have this image of the future for themselves. And I think that the interest towards sci-fi books and movies is partly based on this willingness to understand what comes next. As for the character, I think there is a point related to the following. We always try to go through technologies, imagining our future. But in literature, there are not so many stories. And I am speaking about these movies, Back to the Future and Terminator. They are iconic movies. But if we take a different movie, for instance, if we look at Forrest Gump, there is a character, and he's an absolute archetype character. And he is a kind and as if silly dreamer whose kindness is always winning over evil. And that's why he can act in 2100 or 1800. So there are archetypes that always find their place in hearts of people. And frankly speaking, I think that this attempt to substitute this image, rich and deep character, with adding to it various technical or technological functions, actually says that We lack,
в этот момент у людей,
at this
которые
point
это
of time,
делают,
among people who are producing that,
творческих
they lack
способностей для того,
creative
чтобы этого героя
capabilities
продвинуть.
to promote the character.
Собственно, и я как бы глубокий сторонник, если мы посмотрим на все
And if we
современные
are
формы
to look
коммуникации,
at
мы
any
увидим, что
modern
подкаст
forms
это
of
радио,
communication
мы
available,
увидим,
you
что
could
YouTube это
come to conclusion that
телевизор,
podcast is nothing else
мы увидим,
but
что
a radio,
телеграм-канал это,
YouTube
по
is
сути,
nothing else
заметка,
but a
это
TV,
авторская
and Telegram
колонка в
channel
газете,
is
да, то есть
an
ничего не
editor's
меняется,
article
если
in a
честно, с точки
newspaper.
зрения,
So nothing changes in terms
на
of
самом деле, форм, да, форматы,
formats.
технологические
Well, yeah, the formats do
платформы
change, but the
меняются, но
essence
люди
is the same.
как
The
раньше
technological
воспринимали
platforms
информацию,
evolve,
так и её
but people perceive
воспринимают, да,
information in
потому
exactly
что
the
там
same manner as they used to be.
чем отличается
What is the
какой-нибудь
difference
телеграм-канал с
between a
инсайдами от
Telegram
Глашатого
channel
на
with
площади?
insights
Ничем,
and
на самом деле.
a person
Или вот
announcing
сплетни,
latest
которые
news
люди
at
рассказывали
the
друг
medieval
другу
century
во все
square,
времена,
or
там,
any
собираясь
gossip that people would be sharing at any time in
узким
human
кругом.
history by
Тоже ничем.
getting together in a
Поэтому
narrow circle.
мне кажется, что
So it
основная
seems to me
задача в
that
построении образа
the
героя
main
заключается в
reason
том,
for
чтобы не
designing a
отказываться
character
от
is
тех
not to step away from
компетенций
those
у
competences
креативной среды,
that creative
которые
environment
позволяли
possesses
этот образ
that
конструировать
would allow to construct
в все
this
времена.
image
Да?
in
У
any
нас
time in
сегодня,
human
к
history.
сожалению,
Unfortunately, today,
долгое время любимым ответом на
the
вопрос,
favorite
какая
answer
ваша
to a question,
какая самая важная для вас книга?
what is the
Вот
most
такой ответ
important
я
book
не
you've ever
люблю
read,
читать. И,
most
на
of
мой
the
взгляд,
VK users
например,
would say, I don't like
то,
reading. Unfortunately, that has been the
чтение
case for
для
many
значимого
years.
процента
And
нового
the fact that
поколения
reading for a considerable part of new generation of young people does not have the same value, among others, make the problem of the so-called heroes or superheroes even more acute. Well, before, we would normally shape our characters, our true heroes, through literature, through reading books, and there is a whole layer of people who grew up in the Soviet times, and they had a fairly high level of education, and primarily that was anchored in literature and cinema. So it seems to me that the same laws apply, and technologies are there to simply help us use the tools of promotion. All right, that's an interesting idea, thank you. So basically, we are working in the same system using new tools, it's just that the new formats are slightly affecting the content. Mariana, I'd like to address you. You represent VK Video, and as Vladimir was rightfully saying, that characters remain characters, but the means of their creation evolve. Several decades evolve, and we consider that the character was always a human being. It was played by an actor, it was promoted by the same actor. Today, we see a whole number of virtual influencers and characters invented by neural networks. We see 3D graphics, GTIs, and looks like humans have nothing to do with that. How do you think, do that kind of characters have a chance to get popularity? Maybe this is the future, virtual characters invented by neural networks. Well, indeed, just lately I saw a presentation delivered by OpenAI where they presented new generative network capable of generating videos that is virtually impossible to distinguish from true videos. They use real characters and AI characters. I know people who are using digital avatars in their work. They speak on behalf of their creators, deliver lectures. Well, it's not a human being, but it's a digital avatar of this person generated by neural network, and also the text and the lectures are generated by neural network, and it all looks very authentic. It is to come, and I guess people will be afraid of that, because if you see fake video looking very plausible, it is just as unpleasant as if a person is telling you a lie, claiming that they're speaking the truth. I guess instinctively people would be willing to step away from that on the one hand, and on the other hand they would still be consuming this content, and this is where great responsibility goes to video platforms. It seems to me that video platforms, the most responsible video platforms, should label videos generated by AI, and by doing so, they would not just deliver their responsibility towards the society, but in a way they would ensure trust of their audiences, because trust and being truthful to your audiences is critical. So I guess both methods would apply, but labeling is important. And in a way, I would argue, in some ways I would also agree to what Vladimir was saying. I guess those statements are important in terms of a general overview of what we're discussing. Obviously, characters exist in the context, in the environment. They do not exist in vacuum. Can we predict the future? I guess we can. We all know Leonardo da Vinci, classical exemplar person, has been able to predict creation of submarine, tank, airplane, and many more discoveries. So you can create a vision of the future ahead of many centuries. Obviously, only someone who's a genius is capable of doing that, not just a visionary. But still, obviously there are plenty of books written about Leonardo da Vinci. It is indeed a way to predict many things in our lives. What Leonardo was saying and writing, well, most of his predictions and projections are in line with the biology of our species. So all of those inventions suit us as human beings, as creation of nature, and it is kind of a logical, biological prolongation of ours, just like bioprosthetics substituting human arms. So in this way, you can predict the future. And technological breakthroughs, we've seen those in human history when those would be accumulated. And for the last 50 years, as you were saying yourself, indeed, it was very much expected at the beginning of the 21st century there would be major breakthroughs happening. It did not happen, but it looks like that the humanity kept accumulating knowledge, and today we live in a new era that is all visual, tech, and information. Those new technologies, among others, video technologies, is undoubtedly a revolution in the instruments we use, and this revolution is happening. We live through that. That's why all the fortune tellers are so popular today, and conspiracy theories are back, because people are worried, they're afraid what is going to happen to their careers. We as journalists, editors, product managers, what is going to happen to our careers with that pace of technological development? It is scary. For many, virtually all professions, we do not know what waits ahead. And certainly there is greater interest from the side of broader public towards something that is extra paranormal, if I may say so, because probably this is where all the answers are. And as Vladimir was saying, I would agree, evolutionary processes is long, it takes time. And those new tools that we're coming up with that are set to develop, those generative neural networks, video editors, we have a video editor of our own that allows us to quickly edit our videos. That was something unthinkable just several years ago, just a year ago. It was unthinkable. Now we have it. And obviously AI is going to develop even faster, but that's still an instrument, it's a tool. And in the world literature, there are indeed 36 main scripts. That's what we were told at the journalist faculty of Moscow State University. 36 basic scripts that you can think of. And in this way, characters are not going to evolve much. They can be positive or negative, they can be mixed, which is always more exciting. They may love their homeland, or they may be traitors, they may love women or someone else. So it's quite clear. Don't go there, whether they're going to love women or something else. Don't go for that, Vladimir. We are carefully watching what is happening. I'm not going to react to this provocation. Nonetheless, the classical script, he loves her, she loves someone else, love triangle. There are not too many script options. So the characters would still exist within this framework of what we as a biological species is capable of doing. And the most important thing is where I started. Remaining true to your audience, being truthful, being authentic. If the audience is going to feel the authenticity and truthfulness of the character, their emotions, if there will be an actual appealing story that evolves, and the storytelling will be there in the adequate language with all the classical traits and patterns, because there is really nothing new in terms of evolvement of the character or the script has ever been invented. The tools of delivery of the story are new. Yes, they are there, we see them. And myself, I'm in charge of #1 video platform in Russia, VK Video, and this is a new tool allowing us to do that. And you can create playlist of your own. This is your very much customized TV or music or films or anything. It is all there. But the foundation is the same. It's still with us. And being truthful and authentic will remain at the core for a long while, hopefully. I think Vladimir wanted to react. No, I very much agree with what Mariana is saying. But just to support her latest statement, the most popular TV series of several years in Russia is A Word of a Dude, because this is a TV series about the 90s in Russia. I remember 90s in Russia. This is the time when everything was very truthful and authentic. It was roaring, it was crazy. 90s all of a sudden are trendy now. People are curious how it felt back then, feels safe and comfortable now compared to that time, and it does coincide with the sentiment of some of the people where, say, 90s were very authentic, they were very true, and here is the outcome. This is why TV series is so popular. Well, look, as a moderator, I have to jump in into this discussion. You say it is important to be true and authentic to your audiences, but today we see deep fake videos. They look very authentic, and many people believe those. We've seen plenty of examples where we see state officials, governors of some countries calling people to do something, and some people react to that and act on those calls. What happens if, let's say, tomorrow, neural network generates another image calling all of us to do something dangerous? How do you react to that? How do we respond to that? Taking into account new technologies, how can we validate authenticity? Well, I'm sure there will be new technologies that will allow us to combat fake technologies. For example, as soon as fake money emerged, there were technologies and people protecting us from fake money. The same would apply. Protection against fake video and generation of new content would mean that there would be people who try to abuse the technologies for their own enrichment. Therefore, the responsible institutes and platforms will be there to combat them and protect people. And the public will have to be educated on how to see the difference between deep fake and real videos. And this is happening already. Also, Yulia, you were saying who is going to gain trust of the audiences. We see an obvious trend right now. We see it at VK. Marketing experts see that. Business is always quick to react to that. We see that trust is being lost by macro influencers and celebrities. They lose trust of the audiences. And before, marketing contracts would be going primarily to celebrities. They were recruited as ambassadors of various brands. They were paraded everywhere at the events. Well, this trend is changing very actively now, and we see that large brands prefer micro-influencers and micro-bloggers now. And in fact, those are people that are great in their own niche, and they have gained a lot of trust of the audience. They have become experts in their niches. They acquired the audiences that trust them. They would say, why you offer a large marketing contract to a celebrity? Well, simply because this person is a celebrity and this is an appealing personality and everyone knows them, but they are not necessarily experts in the area. They don't have to be experts in banking or upbringing of children. Like microbloggers and micro-influencers are actually experts in the area, and they get marketing budgets now from businesses. This is happening already. We see it now. And this is, again, a matter of trust, because they have deserved trust of their audiences, and the marketing budgets are following that. And the same applies to video platforms that are going to label videos generated by AIs. They are going to fight against deep fakes and are going to behave responsibly, and most importantly, they will be rewarded with time and trust of their users. Thank you. So, dear audience, probably this is the future, that kind of micro characters. Micro not because they are less important, but micro because they precisely fit the micro audiences that have their trust and ready to follow them. Now, let's move on and let us talk to one more Vladimir in this panel. Vladimir, we know that right now you work on an amazing project. Can you please tell us more about it? Tell us how the actual creators of today shape characters of the future. Well, since you mentioned deepfakes, as I was taking a taxi on the way here, I recognized a trend. I'm trying to scare off my mum using a homeless image generated by AI. Maybe some of you have noticed this trend on social media. The trend is you use a neural network called Nana Banana. You make a photo of the door to your home. You add a homeless person generated by AI. You send it over to your mum and tells her, look, this homeless guy came, he claims he studied with you, he asked me to give him food. The next photo is this homeless person in your home eating your food in your kitchen. And then you watch the reaction of your mum to this fake video. Well, I guess there were some real stories happening in our childhood that would scare our mums even more. Well, I wasn't taking any homeless person to my home, but I do know some friends who were bringing them home. Well, we know at least one person like that. Okay, so why I'm sharing this story? The technological future does pose certain challenges. And whenever we say that there are some realistic deep fakes with politicians making their calls, and most probably they will emerge in the future, the only two things we can do to counteract that is our technological consciousness and awareness, and this is also retention of certain constants. Because if we are to look at what has happened to the world 5 years ago, if we roll back to 2020, well, back then it was hard to imagine that things that have happened today would happen. And if we are to analyze the trends, then generally we can be guided by how it evolves in terms of where we are today, without taking into account certain black swans, as we call them. And those black swans happen increasingly frequently now, even regularly. And therefore, it is very important for us to identify the main constants and shape the archetype of a character that we are going to position in a certain environment. And I fully agree with Roberto. For many years, we existed in the environment defined by two things. First, this is an environment of negative perception of the future, because very frequently the key script that we would see is post-apocalypse era, or the apocalypse that we need to prevent from happening. Why was it happening in this manner? Well, this is an easy setting to use classical Hollywood-style archetype of a character. This is a lone wolf in possession of some super skill, or rather super power or super will to change the environment for the good of humankind, save the world, his beloved, and so on and so forth. So it seems that the story of our positive, bright future, and this is the trend we need to break, we need to shape a positive future outlook, is about a different type of an archetype of a character. I generally agree that this is a story about collective solutions. It's about collectivism, because we have a group of characters, and even Hollywood understands that, because the Avengers is all about that. Or Defenders of the Galaxy, we have characters from various universes, and they are all united in a team. One of the characters is even an animal, and the same is happening to the three bodies solution that comes from physics. We have a whole group of characters, each of the characters responsible for their own realm, and together they are trying to prevent something that can't be prevented. But generally, since we live in Russia and we are Russians, we need to think about the archetype of a truly Russian character. And in my view, The archetype of a Russian character was always about sacrifice and fighting for justice that is frequently higher than any law, simply because this law may be imperfect compared to fairness and true spirit of justice. So if we are to define the archetype of a Russian character in this particular narrative, then we need to think about the setting where we're going to put him, how the setting evolves and how our character evolves under the pressure of this setting without losing the core, this battle for justice and battle for some kind of collective good. And if we are to look at the TV series that is being produced right now, the character is named Maxim Kararer. You may have seen him in The Beetle in the Anthill as a younger character by Strugatsky, and this character is still there. If we are to make reference to the archetype created by Strugatsky brothers, then we would see that those are the people who wanted to bring progress, they wanted to change other words for the better without interfering too much. Then we can say that this is our archetype. It was with us in the past, in the recent past. It's not sufficiently researched, and we can use this story.
And then the point is what setting we use for the hero. And the second important point we have to consider is an attempt to actually dissolve the techno-skepticism. We understand, and we started with that, saying that all technologies can be used for good or for bad, and thinking that we will see counter-technologies to catch the whole story. It doesn't make sense, because any counter-technology is less effective than the original one. Well, at least it tries to keep up. Yes, it's the constant arms race, and to actually dissolve this techno-skepticism should be done through consciousness, content consciousness. So the question is in what amount of content we create and how we explain to our audience why they are watching this. Because when I am approached by friends or people around me who ask me to comment on the news as if I know insights, I ask them, why do you consume such type of content? And they are just numb, because they do not even think about it. Well, we got used to it. Well, they do not even have answer to this question, just because. And the key question is, why do you do that? Why do you consume such story? And in the future, without developing this in people, actually, we will not be able to move forward more effectively. To have high-quality content people consume due to clear-cut reasons, to feel the emotions, where we can offer proper ideas, and we separate it from the huge stream of neuro content that is actually pushing us, and we will have even more of such content around in the future. And to close the third story, it seems very important that in the future we have craft stories. I mean, today we understand that, for instance, Sora 2 is out now. Demo videos that are shown are very idealistic, explaining how it will look like, because first Sora, we tested it, and it was a nightmare. 15-30 second generation, not very effective in terms of sequence, and it's hard to prompt. But in the future, such technologies will evolve, and obviously we will drown in a stream of low-quality content that will be 100% generated by various models. But then the more valuable are the creations made by the hands of people. And it seems like today we have to think about what happens in the world, overproduction of content, and think about the following. Probably we should produce less and better, but with proper characters, then try to keep up with competitors other countries and thinking like, if we do not do that, then soldiers of NATO will. So the story of the future is in making craft stories with a clear-cut archetype of a Russian character that is close to our audience, that is quite compactly, actually inhibiting this content space. But as Roberta mentioned, through characters we open up ourselves to other cultures, and our characters should be focusing not only on our audience but the global one, to show what happens in our country, in our civilization. In order to tell people about us through our characters, we need two things. First, we need consistency, stability, and number two, we need the otherness foreigners sometimes see in us. Roughly speaking, a large amount of Russian movies, even in the 90s, actually were very successful at the West. Before Netflix left Russia, we were at the threshold of they were ready to shoot several series and publish them. One of them is Anna Karenina, based on a famous story. The whole world loves us, especially if we speak about the English-speaking world, much more materialistic than us. And that's the idea why they are inspired by us. So there is a term, secret Russian soul, foreigners often say. Due to historical reasons, it's hard to understand what we are about. But this is a basic thing for us. We are born with that. And the archetype of such heroes, such characters as, well, this is a bad case because it is not as positive. But, for instance, the Brother movie. This is something for Americans from China, from Africa. For them, it amazes them in the same way. So if we have more characters like that put in positive setting, it seems like such content can be successful and multicultural. Just if we consider that with this character we should have other people around, I mean, people from other nations, they should fit into it organically. In Hollywood, for instance, sometimes Chinese companies invest and they need a character, Chinese character around the main one. But a different question from what you are talking about, quite interesting things indeed, about archetypes and technologies and how we perceive them. What do you do it in your project in the about the future? First of all, we try to speak about, yes, we have the archetype of the character, we have a collective story in mockumentary series. So the project is called the Report 2035. Now it is trendy to call such things disrupt. This is a hooligan project, sort of, that tries to create an image of the future, positive for Russia, not very much positive for the rest of the world, because we see what happens across the world, and there are no prospects that the problems that we see today, right populism in Europe and migrants crisis in Europe, and the issues in the United States and the situation around Taiwan, we don't think that they will be resolved in peaceful way, because the practice of recent years show that we have some challenges in tackling conflicts in peaceful way. But obviously in Russia there are our own trends and we do not go away from them. We speak about how we will overcome the problems, and in Russia we are depicting a clear-cut image of the future based on several important key points. First story, this is something without which we cannot develop the spatial development of the country. Roughly speaking, we have a huge amount of population concentrated in several cities, especially in the European part of Russia. Everyone goes to Moscow. We want to create a different image. Russia was always famous with its territory, and Russia has a unique natural story because climate change is also relevant for us. And Russia, due to its geographical positioning, is one of few countries for whom, in theory, basing on climatic models that exist today, and they are also based on current data with mathematical modeling, computer forecasting, will not suffer that much and probably will even benefit from the situation, especially if we speak about development of the Northern Sea route. And building infrastructure around the Northern Sea route is another important point, because here in Russia we have a monopoly. No one in the world is building such advanced nuclear icebreakers. Well, actually, no one is really building them, just Russia. And the Northern Sea route is a great alternative to current trade routes in turbulent world of the future. And story number 3, I'm sincerely convinced that Russia and people who live in Russia, we are a community people. This is not good or bad. This is just a fact, because before 1861 and the cancellation of serfdom, we were an agrarian country living in one community. And we need to get back to the story, because now what do we see in large cities? Huge blocks of flats, very high-rise buildings, and neighbors do not know each other. We do not care about each other. Since we are developing our country, should develop our country spatially, we can get back to that estate lifestyle or to advanced village lifestyle. Why advanced? Because broadband internet development, Russia, by the way, is one of the most connected, internet-connected countries today. This will contribute to a situation where you can have any product or service without going away from your village rural lifestyle. Depicting this image of the future within the framework of a couple of reports, and they are done from a personal perspective from 2035, and the author of these reports is the character of mockumentary series, pseudo-documentary series, where he, with a team of people, where he is to save the world from an unexpected nuclear threat. So here we see a very important task to try to speak about such technological consciousness. Obviously, technologies are a threat, and we're speaking about that, about how deep fakes led us to a situation where we had to, firstly, across the whole world, we had to abandon anonymity. We just abandoned it because we have Yandex ID, Sber ID, and state services, Gosuslugi. We have accounts in Telegram. We have our phone numbers linked to everything. And story number 2 is about how AI will develop from the standpoint of personal AI assistants. Obviously, we're moving this way. The question is in the amount of electricity and computing capacities, the context of the model, and how, in fact, AI can develop up to super conscious, and is it good or bad for us? As a result, AI model initially created for various terrorist operations, but out of the box it is not connected to the large internet. Talking to our heroes, characters, we understand that you have to sacrifice yourself. Thank you very much. So let's share with our viewers the fact that they can become part of the project 2035, and they will have a glossary glossy magazine showing the outlook from 2035. So let's start this journey and look into where we are going to be. Very interesting, because I haven't yet seen it. The printed version arrived yesterday. That's why you are the first ones, even before the creator can see the copy. Yes, you'll be the first ones. So let's move on. Thank you very much, Vladimir. Alexei, let's talk to you. You know, your organization is very interesting. Just giving you some information about it. The Expert Council of IRI, this is a large industrial council. When it looks into projects and making a decision whether to support or not, it makes a decision what we will need in 2 or 3 years, because the cycle of producing products is quite long. And through what methodologies, markers or recommendations you assess the characters and whether they are in demand in the nearest future, and how the story will evolve in the future. Good afternoon, good morning, dear friends. Julia, thank you very much. If I may, I will answer this question. I cannot prohibit you from doing this. The previous speakers articulated several interesting concepts. I want to speak about them as well. Mariana, may I have the copy? You will be surprised why I'm showing it, not Vladimir, because Vladimir is modest, not saying that this project is under the auspices of the Institute of Development of Internet. But I will articulate that. That was obvious. I didn't mention that. Well, it is published in Lenta.ru, and colleagues made a special edition. This is October 2035, the cover says. What is it? This is an attempt to reflect on what will happen in 10 years and look back retrospectively. So getting back to this definition of fantasy term and why people are producing it and consuming it, and the demand is growing, I think sci-fi is a means to adapt human beings to possible future, which is unknown. Sometimes it might look threatening, or unclear, or fascinating, or interesting, technologically advanced and developed. As Vladimir properly mentioned, techno-optimism or techno-pessimism, and by the way, it is advancing, accelerating today. You know, fantasy is a means to try to look into the future, not knowing what it will bring us, and try to define things, to call them and describe them. Leonardo da Vinci and the ancient Greeks, up to clear characters like those of Jules Verne. We all read that thinking, well, these characters are very interesting. Why he is describing things we know very well, like submarines or things like that. But he was a writer of the late 19th century, and all these things were just prototypes, as we would call them today. So let's continue with these analogies and and make a step back and look at the following. Generations were brought on sci-fi books. Belyaev, Soviet sci-fi, Alexei Tolstoy, Aelita, and all that. And the world sci-fi, Jules Verne, and American sci-fi of the 20th century, from Asimov down to everybody. So these are all attempts to try and find the future. And many things are with us now, today. We're not surprised with having smartphones you can use to make a video call with your friend. This is a video phone from the movie called Back to the Future, Volodya mentioned. And apart from just the flying vehicles, is not something we have. Actually, we do not very much need it. Well, we will have traffic jams in the air if they are operating. So why I'm saying all that? Those are all means of adaptation. And speaking about characters, look what we have. The characters of generations, not just one-time interesting characters, but the hero of the generation is someone with whom a generation is brought, and people, when they get older, they can say each other, have you seen the movie with that one? And at the point of time, the period of time, those were books, and then movies came in, and other elements, TV, for instance. But now, this attention is spread. An attempt to say that the cinema, movies, is as important as in the 50s or the 70s. No, it won't be truth. Cinema is important, but it is hard to get into a very systemic point. The hooligans word. Yes, half of the country watched the movie, the series. They can actually take it positively or negatively, but the synchronization with the time and the space actually happened through this particular series. And the Landeschi series, for a large part of young people, this also became a point of synchronization. The character Lyocha actually is now remembered by everyone. But what is the point for today? We might not understand it now at this point of time, but in 10 years probably we will be able to say that was remembering what we have seen at that point of time and what the character actually impacted us. My opinion is that this will become a trend and this will become a basis. I think games will take this place. Short videos, those reels and memes, we are all consuming actively. You cannot describe it sometimes. Have you seen that nice dog from reels? Actually, in fact, we've all seen it. It can be spread across the space, but it is something that brings us together. Movies, quite rarely. Books, even also quite rarely. So I think in the future we will see a neural revolution of content, and we will be drowning in a huge amount of bad content. But let me give you a risky analogy. Don't we have enough good times?
Obviously, there are plenty of books written, and the printing machine has been a valuable. Books, newspapers is just another way of packaging information, similar to what is done by AI neural networks today. So we live in a format as if the book and newspapers editing just started. And those are just what neural networks are offering us. I guess time will pass, it would settle down. We would see Sora 33 capable of generating an hour-long movie on demand right now, based on the script you like, with the characters you want, and that would be the intellectual wave we would all use to compete in one way or another. So, coming back to your question, Yulia, I first would like to say that, well, sorry, just the most important conclusion from all of that, we as humans remain the same. The feeling of good and evil remains the same. The categories, the archetypes are the same. But I have a feeling that right now, the biological mutation and adaptation of humans to progress is somewhat lagging behind the technological process per se. So we are inventing new things, making discoveries faster than we are capable to adopt to that biologically. And that is a certain threat, because the society starts thinking in terms of society. We're talking impact of the society. We can read it on social media. The society believes. I'm sure Vladimir is carefully watching the public sentiment through the social media, and I guess he would agree that there is a term coined like the society thinks. It's like some kind of a collective mind, like a beehive. And this is the phenomenon discussed and defined in various scientific literature. But I guess individually, a human being is mostly lagging behind scientific progress. And sci-fi is a way for them to relax, adopt, and get a simplified access to what may emerge in the nearest future. Coming back to this lengthy intro, I am going to answer your question, Yulia. How we're trying to cope with that, how we're trying to adapt to that. You can't predict everything, you can only try and experiment. This year, for the first time, we're going to have a competition for content creators using AI. It will happen in October and November, so if some of you are ready to run experiments with short videos and neural networks, feel free to join us. We can have a look what we come up with, whether we will come up with something decent that we would be able to consume as humans without being annoyed and saying, look, it hallucinated, you will see 6 fingers here and a blurred face of a character. So we are trying to shift the focus of attention on the content consumed by young people. Those are games, web TV series, short video, and various audio podcasts, audio dramas. We are getting back to everything that existed once in a while ago. Audio dramas, theater for microphone is gaining momentum again. So we are trying to offer assistance to our colleagues to do some provocative endeavors, like the project that Vladimir Todorov was just talking about. This is an attempt to look into the future. If we are to add artificial intelligence today, I would say in a year or two, Vladimir may be able to present you a proper mini series, let's say 100 TV series, where everything would be summarized, described, and recorded, and you won't be able to see the difference between the deepfake and anything else. I'm sure that will happen very soon, and while you're doing that, while you're preparing the reporting, yes, the year will pass and you will be able to present the second season by then. And just today, we've been discussing it in the chart of our institute. Maybe we should create a virtual participant of the Producers' Council that participate in selecting the projects we want to produce, so that this AI assistant could also have a voting right, capable to calibrate projects, to check whether the project comply with the values identified by the presidential decree, where traditional moral values are to be promoted. Why not? I guess it may happen at some point. An opinion of this assistant may be considered so far in the council of voters, but later on it may even become defining. We can try, we can run experiments. At least I know for sure that the participants of the jury that we have, those are the people at the front line of creating content, of requesting content for a year or two to come, are thinking about that, how technologies can shape and change the reality, and where is the borderline between what we need creators and where we can leave it to the technologies. And I'm very happy that the final word in all kind of neural experiments is reserved for the creators, for the film director, for the film producer, and the playwright or scriptwriter. They define what will be the outcome of the project. Otherwise, we'll have to wait and see. Thank you. Well, I guess this is an exciting conversation. Very soon, our project will be evaluated using neural producers. All right, Mr. Wan, I'm finally contacting you. I'm even getting questions from the audience when I will finally give the word to you so that you could react to everything that was mentioned earlier. Alexei just reacted to the issue of technological revolution in content, where new technologies start helping us and assisting us in promoting characters. And I guess it's not surprising to anyone that there will be an audience wearing VR reality glasses, or very soon you will no longer need to use VR glasses, you will be placed inside the movie. What are the technologies that you see? China is definitely a hub of technological drive and shift. So what is shaping the content that will become a normality for the future?
好的，非常感谢主持人。我想用
Thank you very much, Madam Moderator, for your question.
简单的描述技术和内容的关系，就是技术会吸引我们进入一个故
I
事，
could
但是
describe
内容会决
technologies
定让我们是否在这个故事里边留
and
下。
content as follows.
我小的时候，
Technologies
包括
can
现在也非
assist
常
us
喜
in
欢看
generation
关于
of
各种英
content,
雄主题
but
的电影，但
content
是我觉得它的类
has
型其实是非常丰富
to
的。
be built around heroic characters. When I was a child, I loved content built around heroes. Those are Chinese films, and we have quite a number of films dedicated to Kung Fu. Those are Chinese TV series, and this is the type of series that has a narrative built around characters. This is a way to use martial arts, to promote martial arts, to fight for fairness and justice. We talked about sci-fi, we talked about the three bodies problem. I am happy that you support Chinese sci-fi and the three bodies problem TV series, if we are to talk about
关于英雄的主题
this film produced by Liu
和
Cixin.
创作上面，我们是有一些共同的想法的。
I would say the cradle for creation of this movie is in the Soviet sci-fi traditions. And when I was walking around Moscow, I saw a lot of various monuments.
它展现了一个普通的战士，
an architectural design that represent characters. But those are different characters. That's not about sci-fi, those are not superheroes, those are regular people, sometimes residents of the villages, and we discussed that today, briefly. In fact, it is important that thanks to the storytelling, we can talk about regular people, simple characters. I do not know whether you've seen this movie. There are groups of characters. They do not fight alone. They fight together as a team for truth, for justice, for saving the world. But they obviously have the anti-characters, that they are fighting anti-heroes. And thanks to this desire to win and use the spirit of collectivism, we can overcome those challenges that the world is facing. And I guess it is important that this idea of collectivism was highlighted by a number of speakers today. If we are to refer to Russian literature and culture, it is also built around the concept of a hero. And a hero for a Russian person is probably a character saving the world, not alone. I've read Belyaev, sci-fi written by him. I've read a lot from Soviet sci-fi literature. They have affected me as well as a creator. And I use those ideas. I'm thinking how those sci-fi images of this world could be implemented in our daily routines and how we can shape the nation, how we can assist one another, how by taking some simple actions with the help of sci-fi, we can change and shape the future. I guess virtual world, if we are talking about movies shaping virtual universes, when I will talk about time travels, traveling to other galaxies, I'm sure many have seen such movies. And this is one of the reasons together we're thinking, how are they doing there in living on other planets? This is an exciting quest that humankind has been pursuing for years. And I would say that if I am to choose a script, if we are talking about scripts favored by the West, I guess frequently they are in one way or another connected to religion, to frequently Christianity. If we are talking about China, we had a lot of legendary characters, and those new sci-fi characters are also rooted in the past stories connected to the 5,000 centuries history of China. Li Bo is a well-known Chinese writer of the Tang dynasty. So those are actual people who lived on this planet many centuries ago, and today when we're making films, we're also addressing those characters. We are guided by specific historical facts, and I guess in the future, our future readers and future producers will be using this historical experience that is accumulated. And in doing so, we will have an ability to take different perspectives on the future of humanity. Sun Yukon is a well-known character that lived more than 1,000 years ago in China, and this character is still very popular because this character has a certain function. It is in possession of certain skills and competences, and if we are to look how this character is represented in a sci-fi movie or a game, game, even in the Chinese content, this image would be different. But still, it would be very recognizable. And this is what we can build on. This well-recognized image can be used to build up new skills and future characters, future movies, future games, or the future of our planet. We have to be guided by those traditions and richness of our experience to shape new images and use new technologies. And in doing so, indeed, we can bring together technologies and unique skills. That would be my answer. Thank you. Thank you very much. A round of applause from our audience is the best gratitude. The time passes really quickly, and if I may, I would like to change the format now and would like to ask a number of blitz questions to each and every one of you. I guess it would be interesting to compare the perspectives of representatives of different cultures and careers. Let's start with this question. We touched on that already, but still, a quick answer from your side. If you were an investor, what is the technology that you would bet on right now? The technology shaping content of the future. As an investor, what you would invest in? AI is clear, but what is the trend of tomorrow? Let's say in 2035, what would be the most powerful technology shaping content creation and the characters we see? Alexei, let's start with you, and then let's go one by one. My answer would be very traditional, boring, and non-technological. I'm sorry. My answer is that in 10 years and hopefully in 100 years, there would be just one important skill that would be in demand, and by then it would become somewhat archaic and also a feature of elitist consumption. This is good quality education in humanities, ability to think, ability to read a lot, see a lot, good eye, good ear, an ability to tilt situation and experience, necessary life experience, and the combination of those skills would allow a scriptwriter, a playwright, a creator, prompt engineer, no matter what you call this person, the person creating new worlds for us, fantasy worlds, the ability of a person to use their brain, and obviously a human brain is always much more exciting than any sophisticated computer, to make the most and the best of this brain to invest new worlds. I'm sure this genre is there to stay. Thank you. Mariana, you're next. Well, I am going to talk about technologies. The short vertical videos, TV series specifically. This is a technology that is well developed in China, as far as I know. There are about 7 billion a year was the budget invested into that. Last year, 1 billion in the USA invested in vertical short TV series. Indeed, people stop reading on paper, but they continue consuming stories, but from now on in video format. We're not going to argue whether that's good or bad. It simply happens. And therefore, I would say those are the books of the future, books turned into short vertical videos, short vertical TV series / books. Thank you, Mariana. Vladimir, what do you think is the technology of the future that you would favor? Well, Yulia, I can never answer this question. It is still defined by individuals. It is invented by individuals. This is just talk of visionaries. Maybe somewhere today this person is already walking around here. Maybe this person is just 15. And we never know what comes into his head. That would be the technologies of the future. That's really how it happens. I genuinely believe in that. You won't be invited for the next Symposium of Inventing the Future. Make an effort. Oh, I'm sure I won't be invited. I'm only looking into the present. I'm sorry, but I'm all built into the present. I'm sure that was the last attempt to make me think about the future, and it failed dramatically. Next time we'll invite your son. Well, I'm sure my son knows more about future than I do. Okay, thank you. Well, that's still an answer. Count it. Roberta, how do you think what is the most promising technology defining the characters and content of tomorrow?
Well, by 2035, we cannot really make predictions because this is beyond the horizon of events that we can predict. Because there is the emerging phenomenon of AI, which will obliterate everything that we know. So basically, all content will be probably produced by AI agents by then. So if I have to be an investor and decide where to invest for 35, I would invest in platforms where actually the things happen, where the AI happens. Platform, the structure of the reality will be in the platforms. For example, now we have already a lot of Italians who have moved from YouTube to VK Video, because they feel their movies are safer there than I have my own. Myself, I have over 500 videos on VK Video because they are less likely to be deleted than on YouTube, for example, because of the content. So, maybe some political content. So, platform will be, the only thing that I can predict will still have a very important strategic value in 10 years from now. All the rest will be dealt by AIs. So, the ones who will control AI, which is an exoskeleton of the mind, the one that they will have actually most of the power, if not at all.
Thank you very much. That is a very interesting observation. I'm sure Mariana was delighted to hear your compliments towards VK Video. That is indeed gaining momentum. Mr. Wang, what is the technology that you would bet on? How do you see the future?
关于这个问题，我可能有2个方面的回答。一个是从科幻的角度来说，如果是
there are two aspects that I'd like to highlight. Number one, objectively speaking, if we are talking about sci-fi, I guess that would be
这个东西，或者是说像《盗梦空间》一样，我们在睡梦的过程中就可以接受到内容。
Some objective realities and maximums.
不光是技术上的问题，还有一个就是我们的消费者。
Maybe it's all about wearable devices that would help you perceive reality in a new way. I would say that our consumers would still be consuming content generated by humans. However, if we are to proceed from the current reality, I would say that technologies are going to play an increasingly important role, and I believe today all the media that exist lack one specific thing. They do not know how humans exactly choose content, how to assist a human person in choosing the content they are most probable to like. And I would also say that technologies are going to become more sophisticated.
And such technologies are used quite extensively today. We need to understand better what content will come to our consumers. That's what I wanted to say. And I would like to say another point. Today it's hard to choose. Our consumers are struggling. When choosing, we have to analyze it, to look deeper into it, look at how they make their choices. And that's how we look at various media and platforms, and that will be the best choice. I will be happy about that. Thank you very much indeed. A very multilateral, multifaceted response. So, what is your take on that? Depending on where I am as an investor, if I am outside of Russia representing a consortium like BlackRock or something like that, I would invest into neurochips technology. I'll explain you why. Today, a large amount of school kids across the world are spending hours in GTA roleplay. Do you know what is it? One. I have 3 people who know what it is. So this is an online server based on GTA 5 game where you can work as a robber of banks or policeman or serve in the army and so on. What neural chip can give you in the future? Neural chip can give you an opportunity to have full-fledged tactile feelings in the copy of physical reality. We are taking the announcement of OpenAI founder. He says, my target ultimate goal is not to create a large linguistic model and super smart AI. I want to create a full copy of physical reality. Knowing that, knowing about the trends in the economy and the politics, we understand clearly that today's generation, Zoomers, Alpha, and so on, will have much less in the material world than we do. A quarter of Americans, according to research, will not be able to buy an apartment, and they will rent by the end of their life. And it means that they will have to work every day in order to have somewhere to live, and the only means of entertainment will be escapism, fleeing the reality, where they can rob banks, work as policemen, and be a character of a Hollywood fighting movie through neural chip. If I live in Russia, I would invest into teams of people with humanitarian liberal arts education who are marking, labeling the data sets for Russian companies owning their own AI models that can further on, based on data set, build a customized AI agents to tackle any tasks. Personal AI assistance or integration into a business process, a simple one, but all that calls for high-quality data set. Now, probably you've heard about that. Meta, prohibited in Russia, bought a company for $12 billion and made the founder the vice president, because the company previously labeled the data sets for all key players in AI model world. Guys from India, Pakistan, Africa, per $1 per day. Probably they don't even speak English. How data sets are labeled for modern AI models? This is an important question. If we control the technology, and by the way, Russia is one of 3 countries in the world with its own AI models, with a large share of the market under control. The question of what data set and how we label it, that's the key question. And the world will get fragmented. AI will go into customized agents, and it is important how we label the data sets. So having people with good education for such type of work and creating infrastructure is a good story. I will always be able to have a monopoly in the market or sell the whole structure to a player with a good price. Well, I am an investor. I would act like that. Thank you very much, Vladimir. Indeed, very good recommendation. So, dear friends, unfortunately, our time is almost up. Probably you've seen how our esteemed experts, how they respond to questions in a very in-depth manner, but they go away from forecasting the future and how it will look like. The neural network is a bit more courageous and created a video that will allow us to peek into the future. So let's do it. Let's watch at the screen.
В мире, где наше внимание – главный ресурс, выигрывают те, кто предложит не просто контент, а его высший стандарт. Искусственный интеллект стирает языковые барьеры, но рождает парадокс. Рискуем ли мы забыть красоту других языков, а с ней и часть нашего коллективного разума? Но как бы технологии не меняли мир, вечным остается одно – наша потребность в героях. Мы бесконечно пересказываем мифы, от Супермена до Укуна и Нежи, наделяя их новыми чертами. Они — зеркало наших современных тревог и надежд. И вот что нас ждет. Мы уже не зрители, а участники. Виртуальная реальность и игры погружают нас в сердце событий. Герой будущего обретет 2 лица. Один — воплощение возвышенных идеалов из глубины веков. Другой — самоучка, защитник малых, но важных жизненных ценностей. А благодаря искусственному интеллекту каждый из нас станет творцом. Мы сможем легко создавать свои истории, как мечтали в детстве. Искусственный интеллект будет создавать фильмы специально для тебя, уникальные, в реальном времени. Сюжет, диалоги, мир — все будет подстраиваться под твой взгляд. Ты будешь принимать решения и влиять на историю, проживая ее изнутри. Будущее повествования Это мир, где граница между героем на экране и тобой окончательно сотрется.
Well, thank you very much to our neural network for this peek into the future, but I believe that the future is in our hands and we will define how it will look like, and the characters we are creating or we are following are the real leaders who will navigate us into the future we want to see, the future of joint work, positive emotions, traditional good relations. And thank you very much to our experts for looking into the future with us. Thank you for sharing your views on how content will develop platforms and characters. Thank you very much.